This is From Maine with Love, an Allagash brewing podcast where we talk about beer, our community here in Maine, and things that generally make us happy. Well, hi, Liz.
Hey, Brett.
How are you doing?
Good.
It's 2023.
Wow.
Wow. The first episode of season 2 of From Maine with Love.
They let us keep doing that.
They really did. We didn't know we were going to, they kept it on. So here we are. We're not stopping. Yes, I mean, we have some interesting beer tidbits that we thought would be really interesting for people to just hear about some new beers we have coming out, some kind of behind the scenes of how those beers came to be.
Yeah.
And some events, just some fun stuff coming up.
Yeah. Somehow it's already February, and
a
lot has been happening around here at the brewery. So
it's a busy year.
Let's talk about it.
Let's get into it. Yeah, so I mean, this year we have a slightly different format. We talked about this a little bit on last episode, but the idea is we're going to have on some cool community partners that we have great relationships with, and then we're also going to pepper in some fun episodes where we're going to talk about stuff going on at the brewery. So it should be a fun mix.
It'll be great.
Yeah.
And if you've got any feedback for us, we always love to hear your thoughts or your ideas for episodes. They're super interesting. So don't forget to email us at podcast@allagash.com.
Podcast@allagash.com. And Liz, I already have your secret question.
Oh boy.
Whoo! I think it's gonna be a good one because I'm actually interested in your answer. Well, I'm always interested in your answer. That came off poorly. I'm sorry. I'm very interested.
I'm not offended.
And so the question is, what is your one kind of top party planning tip?
Ooh. Put my husband in charge of it. He's a big party planner.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great entertaining advice out there, Brett.
Sure.
We like to often prep as many snicky snacks as we can so that we don't have to do it during the party.
Smart.
Yeah.
That's good.
And you know what? I love a fun party napkin. Just a little cocktail napkin that's got a little flair or pizzazz to it.
That feels like that would be the detail that would add that extra bit of like, wow, they really care.
They care.
They're having a good time.
They got a cocktail napkin.
Yeah, they didn't just rip up some paper towel like Brett does when he has people over. Yeah,
These are for like, that's like we throw sort of a summer party and a holiday party. And
sweep the graham cracker crumbs off the couch, just really do it up.
Set the dog out before, just clean everything up. Yeah.
There you go. You don't need to ask me a question, Liz. I just, unless you have one.
Well, Brett, we got to spend some time in the car last week.
That's true.
And we got talking about music. So I figured, do you have any shows lined up for this year or anything you've been eyeing that you want to grab tickets for?
Yeah, I was gonna. Well, actually, LCD Sound System is one of my favorite bands. But then also, there's a band, Big Thief, that just came and played at the State Theater. And I was thinking about going to see them. That was like a weekend or two ago. Unfortunately, the tickets were slightly pricier than I wanted to go for it. And so because I'm a fan, but I'm not like a big fan.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
Got any good ones?
No, I'm a huge Beyonce fan, but not huge enough that I know the details of when the tickets are out, although I know it is sometime soon. So we'll see.
Good luck.
Good luck to me. Yeah, so what is coming up here at the brewery that you are particularly excited about?
I am particularly excited about the Report series. It's a series of 3 beers that we just announced on our social media. And it is, we can go through each one of them, but the names of the beers are going to be Wildlife Report in the spring, Beach Report in the summer, and then Snow Report in the winter.
Yeah, these are fun.
Totally.
I think we were sort of asked on the marketing and branding side to come up with a series of beers, and we've certainly released things in the past that have seasonality to them, but not in a really cohesive year-round way, I don't think.
Totally.
So coming up with something that was connected and then finding names for things that were connected that
We're not already taken.
We're not already taken.
Yes.
was a fun task. So
It was.
What do we got?
So yeah, I mean, just a little bit of background. We had a beer called Foliage Report that is our double that has done really well in the tasting room, and it's just a delicious beer. And so I think it was we loved that beer so much that we're like, oh, can we kind of bring this around and do this? Like, can we do a report series? And so I think I think I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think everything makes sense. And so to start with Wildlife Report, that's a farmhouse style ale. It's 8% ABV. It is actually in style a bière de garde, which is a really cool style that I did not know existed until I had the From Maine with Love version of that beer, which was From Maine with Love number 10. And I fell in love with this style. It's literally one of my new favorite styles.
It's a delicious beer. It's, I feel like, a good representation of this time of year too. 8% ABV. It's a little bit higher, a little bit more robust.
It's a sneaky high. It does not taste like an 8% beer. It tastes like 6%. And it's got, so if you're familiar with Saisons, it's like a cousin of the Saison sort of a thing. Bière de garde actually means beer for keeping. And this one has, I think we put down notes of honey and pear, but like all yeast forward beers, like a Saison or Bière de garde, where the yeast is kind of one of the dominant flavor components, it has so much going on in it. It's just but it's, like many of our beers too, super clean and crisp and just, that flavor, it's just a really nice, dry, delicious drinkable beer.
Yeah, and these are national releases, so these are going out into the world. You can find them on our locator on our website, allagash.com/locator. The report comes in. You think of Wildlife Report, you start tracking wildlife. Whether you're living in somewhere that's still covered in snow, like we are here in Maine, and maybe you get to see your little deer tracks, or you've got
foxes.
Yeah, if you're lucky, you see a fox or a little rabbit.
Little raccoon.
I know there's many places in the United States that are much warmer than we are, so got some fun wildlife that we think this beer is a perfect complement to all your seeking out your spring wildlife.
Taking a trail walk.
Perfect. Backyard birding.
Birding.
Lots of fun things to do.
Yeah.
So the report series was inspired by Foliage Report, which is a thing I think in many New England states where in the fall the leaves start to change, and that's a very exciting time of year. Often people travel to Maine and Vermont and New Hampshire to literally look at the leaves, and we call them leaf peepers. But in Maine, there's the Maine Foliage Report, which literally tracks the foliage in Maine and tells you if it's near peak or, where it is. And so people can go around, and if they're really dedicated to watching the foliage change, they know where they should go for optimizing leaf peeping maxitude. And so we love this. This is one of our favorite things to get excited about in the fall. And it's a great account to follow. And I think a couple people on the marketing team, myself included, were driving up to our friends at Appalachian Mountain Club one fall, and I think it just sort of dawned on us, like, oh my God, what a fun name for a beer, Foliage Report. It's totally a thing here.
Totally.
And it just got us thinking about sort of how we could run with that name. And so when we were presented the idea of sort of making a seasonal series, I think we sort of took a nudge from that beer in particular.
Yeah.
And you could report on so many other things.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And we had some fun with Foliage Report too. I think that's what you'll find in kind of our descriptions of a lot of these beers, like Foliage Report. So we coupled it. I think, we have a wonderful photographer in Matt who works on our team, and he took an incredible foliage picture, and he takes a lot of them, but we had this incredible foliage picture for the social media of talking about it. And then we just kind of coupled that with some really wacky, sort of goofy, language around it of incredibly imprecise foliage stuff of orange poofers and ruby red droppers and just
we're no experts.
No. And we leaned into the art inexpertness. And so, it was a really fun combination. I mean, that social post did super well. That beer continues to do super well. And I think for anyone wondering, I talked about this a little bit, but for anyone wondering, there's an interesting thing of okay, so Foliage Report started the series. Why is Foliage Report not included in the series? And a little background beer stuff. So as a series, it comes out seasonally. We also have a fall beer when Foliage Report would be the one to come out. And that fall beer that we have is called Haunted House. And Haunted House is beloved beer here around the brewery, beloved in a lot of the places that we sell beer. And so that kind of was and is the default of that spot. And so we can't really sell 2 fall beers at once because then they're kind of fighting each other. It doesn't make as much sense. So Foliage Report will still actually exist in our tasting room. We're going to be releasing that beer there, coming back, don't worry. But it's there. That's why there is the fall break in the series of we're going spring, summer, winter.
The technicalities.
Oh, the technicalities.
So moving right along to summer. Woo. What's happening in summer?
Summer is Beach Report. It's a 4.2% crisp, bright lager with a slight snap of hoppiness. And if you're an Allagash fan and you had seconds to summer, this is from the same creative mind. I don't think we actually mentioned it, but the Wildlife Report came from a beer idea from Mike Bion, who works in our lab. He's our microbiologist, and I'm sure we're going to have him on the podcast at some point because everything he does is so interesting about yeast propagation and everything like that. But Beach Report is from Corey McNutt. You would have heard him on the Hop Reach podcast as well, describing those flavors. He is just a very talented brewer, and he just made this really, really delicious lager. I think this was another one of those ones where I think when it went on tap on the pilot system, the brewery was just kind of like, ugh.
This came out originally as From Maine with Love 16. So if anyone happened to have that here at the brewery, it is now scaled up into Beach Report. And so I think, when these things zip through the tasting room, that gives us a good indication of how excited people are about it. So Brett, can you give us a little flavor detail on this one?
Oh yeah. Flavor details. I mean,
notes.
It's always hard, I feel like, with lagers because I think all of the lager flavor notes, when you're trying to be accurate around describing the beer, are like not necessarily that appetizing sounding, like bread dough or like, like grassy. I don't think actually I don't remember if that applies to this beer, but I think that like if you are looking for a super easy drinking yet still flavorful and also just super like refreshing lager, this one is just hits all the notes. I just remember tasting this beer and being like, yep, that's what I wanted.
Yeah, this one comes in at 4.2 ABV, so a great little crusher for the warmer weather.
Exactly. Yeah.
I can't wait for that one to come out.
Yeah, and all of these are in 4-packs of 16-ounce cans. That's the way that you're going to find them out in the world. And then that brings us to Snow Report.
Snow Report. Not the current winter season that we are in, which is a very hard thing to describe. It will come out, I think, this November 2023.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So the tail end of this year, when you're thinking about your weekend getaways in the mountains, you're heading out with your friends.
Yeah, this is another, I mean, there are a lot of great beers that come through our pilot system. I think we brewed 98 pilot beers last year.
Oh, yeah.
So we get to taste a lot of really cool, really interesting, thoughtful beers. This is another one of those ones that stood out. It's a Saison. It's brewed with wildflower honey. Yeah. And it is a higher ABV Saison, which normally Saisons I feel like cover around the 6%-ish range, but this one's 8.6%. And
warm you right up after a day in the snow.
But it's, just such great flavor, just like so many fruit-ish notes that you find from that like Saison yeast. And so we put melon, green apple, touch of honey. I think those kind of characterize the flavor, but really it's so much more than that. There are so many other flavors that you can't really pin down. And when it comes to being like we put it as if you want to stay in or go out for a little snowy walk, it's kind of both of these things. It's just like, it'll be really nice in the
if you want to build a snowman, maybe.
Oh, snowman beer. Is that a thing?
We could make it a thing. Sure.
There you go. Snowman beer. In a lot of other winter ales, I think a lot of people, when they think of winter, they think of stouts. Yeah. They think of dark beers and dark, kind of sweet, heavier beers, which I like. I'm a big fan of. So this is kind of an unexpected winter beer, but it's like, it just fits so nicely.
Right.
So Liz, and I mean, if you see these beers on the shelf, you might notice they don't look exactly like every other beer we've made. So, Liz, you want to talk a little bit about that?
We worked with a local sort of design and branding firm, our friends here at Pulp and Wire, who really helped bring this concept to life across all 3 cans. So I think you'll notice a lot of similarities in sort of the artistic styling of these 3 beers. And so it was really fun to collaborate on this series, not only from a how do we create a seasonal series and what does that mean and how do you name it and make it engaging, but also on the branding side to work with a partner to help translate what that meant. And so, we've done some work with them in the past. They're a great partner to us. So thanks our friends at Pulp and Wire.
Thank you. They look awesome. So that is the report series. We have another beer that is out now I'm really excited about from kind of every single way that one can be excited about a beer.
Yeah.
And what beer is that, Liz?
That is called Curate.
Curate.
CUR-8, the number.
That is right.
Gosh, there is so much to say about this beer. It's hard to where do you even start?
I can try.
Go for it.
All right. So Curate is our collaboration with Crowns and Hops, a black-owned brewery out of Inglewood, California.
Yep.
And so we got together with them at the Barrel and Flow Fest this past year in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
And we brewed a beer called Curate for that. And the beer Curate is 80% of their 8 Trill pills and then 20% of our Curio. It is just a super tasty beer.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were super lucky to have Benny and Tio, the founder of Crowns and Hops, visit Allagash last summer. And they got to come and do a full day of, they were working on the blend of the beer.
Yep.
They were, Rob got to take them around the brewery and sort of introduce them to everybody here. And so, we got to know them pretty well through that visit. And certainly Rob has spent time with them at the Barrel and Flow Fest in Pittsburgh too.
Totally.
And so this has been a partnership that's been going on now for, it'll almost a year.
Yeah, nearly a year. Maybe even more, actually, because I think Rob was on a podcast with them in 2020 maybe, or 2021. But anyway, yes.
And so the proceeds of Curate will go to the 8 Trill Initiative, which is a nonprofit that Benny and Tio started. They raise funds to help provide opportunities to Black-owned brewers. And so we're super excited this beer is finally on shelf in celebration of Black History Month. And so it will be available in limited footprint, but will be available in California, New York, here at the Tasting Room, Georgia, and Florida. So if you see it on the shelves, we highly recommend picking it up.
Yeah, and that can just looks super, super good. The Curate is all in gold, and it's just this really nicely, it's just such a vibrant form of gold. It is, everything about that beer. And you're probably going to hear quite a bit more about it in our next podcast, because I think we're going to be talking to Benny and Tio and Rob as well. So
yeah,
you can look
stay
forward to
tuned
that.
for that.
Yeah. Little brief one, little small one. Hop Reach.
Hop Reach.
We're excited about Hop Reach.
Hop Reach IPA.
Hop Reach IPA, our first year-round IPA.
It's making its way onto shelves, so you should be able to get your hands on it. It has been selling pretty darn well here in our tasting room, which is very exciting for people. And so I think even a few times has outsold Allagash White here in the tasting room.
Not even a few times. That's the little insider info. It has, since it's gone on tap in our tasting room, outsold Allagash White in on tap and in package, in people taking it out from the brewery.
Yeah, and not much throws off Allagash White in the tasting room.
Yeah.
So that's just some really exciting,
cool anecdotal,
news.
Totally.
As we launch our first year-round IPA. So if you're looking for it, then again, head to our locator on our website. It should be making its way to shelves near you.
Yeah,
right about
everywhere.
now.
Everywhere we're sold. So it's definitely getting out there. So it being, just around the end of the year and thinking about the brewery and what's been going on here, we had a pretty cool number that we wanted to share with everyone.
Yeah, we got the final, the amount of money that our guests left to our charitable partners last year, $122,000, almost $123,000 went to local nonprofits in 2022.
Yeah.
That is pretty astounding.
All from people just coming through the tasting room. Yeah.
Broke our record for the most amount given. So for anybody who came and visited us and left money beyond their tab, it went to our nonprofit partners, and just thank you so much. It makes a huge difference.
It does.
When we've heard, overwhelmingly nice responses from our charitable partners. So we just wanted to pass that along to you and say thank you so much for helping to contribute to some really amazing nonprofits that we have here in Maine.
Yeah, thank you. And then Liz, I think we had some things happening at the brewery if you happen to be in our area.
If you happen to be visiting us from afar, if you're considering visiting us, or if you're local here in Maine, we've got some fun things coming up. We have, we've got a few From Maine with Loves coming out in the near future. So those are going to be brewery only releases. You can follow at Allagash Tasting to see what those will be. So we've got From Maine with Love 24 coming out today, which is February 9th.
Yes.
It's a Belgian dark ale, and it is, I believe this was an idea from Tom and Keith. And these two,
they're
an incredible
all-star
duo.
All-star.
In our warehouse team. So if you've ever received a package from Allagash, these two have had something to do with it.
If you've been on our shop page on the website as well and have laughed at the descriptions of our items, that is all Tom.
Yep.
Tom just absolutely crushes those.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
So we've got some great releases here. And then we've got our cellars experiences, which are going strong. Our cellars is in our wild and barrel room here at the brewery. We've got our barrel and beers experience, which is you would get beers that are only available in the cellars that sort of celebrate barrel aged or, wild and sour type beers. And you get, Lindsay and the team in the cellars goes through those one by one. You get a great look at sort of the vessels and the space.
Yeah.
And then we also have a pairing of a beer and food pairing experience in February, which you'll get a curated selection of beers, cheese, and chocolate.
That's right.
So you can check that out on our website too.
What is the it's Ragged Coast chocolates and Winter Hill
cheese.
Yeah, the really tasty stuff. And I think that one's especially exciting for me because I think as long as I've been in Allagash, we've been trying to kind of push this idea of beer and food goes together well. And I think it's kind of stuck in everyone's mind where, for good reason, wine and food is a great pairing, but beer is just such an expressive thing to be able to drink and also is so versatile. And so when you get to try it alongside some of these cheeses and some of these chocolates, it's just really cool, the sort of flavors you can find in the beer, flavors you can find in the food that you wouldn't have found otherwise. And so that experience is kind of just like your curated intro to like, here's a really interesting beer, here's a really interesting cheese or chocolate. And it's the other part about those experiences in the cellars that I think is just so exciting for me is like they leave a ton of room for you to ask questions or to just hang out with whoever you're with, or like, it's an hour and a half long experience. And I think you're tasting 4 samples with a little bit of Allagash White thrown in there because you're at Allagash, got a little Allagash White. And I think having done one, it's just, there is so much to talk about behind these beers because beer is just such a complex and really interesting and really deep subject if you want to kind of go there. And I think it's the perfect place to do it because not only are you hearing all this stuff, but you get to just taste it. You get to taste it right there, talk about it, what you're tasting.
And see the barrels. And a lot of these beers that are in part of this experience, I mean, they've been aging for 18 plus months in these, different vessels and barrels and all. And you get to be in that space and sort of, it's easier to take it all in when you're sort of surrounded by the process of how it's made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what days is that? It is
Sunday.
That happens on.
No. I'm sorry. Fridays through Mondays.
Fridays through Mondays is when you can, and you can go onto our website. If you go to the visit, go to the cellars, you can book your book pretty far in advance. I think we have them open in like weeks in advance. So if you're thinking about stopping by, that would be a really fun date night, I will say.
It would be.
Yeah.
It would be a great date night. So yeah, that's what's going on.
That's what's going on.
This has been an Allagash Brewing production. If you have something you'd like us to talk about on the show, send us a message at podcast@allagash.com.
Thank you for listening.